Welcome to MamaFuel, the podcast that fuels every mama's heart, soul, mind, and body, and hopefully sparks a few dreams along the way. I'm Ann Ferguson, Chief Nurturer and Mama Mentor at the Centered Mama Project, and your host for this podcast. I'll be sharing real, raw, and often funny conversations with beautiful mamas from around the world to remind you that you're not alone and that you're doing amazingly on this wild journey of shepherding small humans as they make their way on our beautiful planet. Let's get started.
Well, hello there, beauties. I am so delighted to be back in your earbuds to share a really special conversation today with a woman who has had a really big impact on my life and my healing of old stories, old wounds, and my relationship with money and my body, which is, you might not think it, but it is intertwined. And this is a really great conversation to be sharing right now, the day before Christmas, when we're talking about every way that your body communicates with you and explains to you that it requires attention and that your soul cries out, telling you that it requires attention. In these really busy holiday times, it can be hard to create and protect space for yourself. But Mama, I swear to you, it is the most important thing that you can do, more important than all the shoulds and all the coulds and all the requirements and family expectations. The most important really, really is you. You are the most important in creating and protecting time and space for you, whether it's going to feel like you're being selfish or you're awful or you're a bad mom or daughter or sister or wife or whatever. No, do every single day something for you and no one else. And what you'll start to see when you practice these little self-love strategies is that everyone else benefits as well. If you don't really know what I'm talking about, you might want to head over to the Centered Mama Project's virtual village on Facebook, and you can get there by going to thecenteredmamaproject.com/Facebook or just clicking on the link in the show notes and checking out the 12 Days of Christmas Self-Love Challenge, I called it, but it's a Nurture Fest really that I was running up until yesterday, which was the 23rd of December. Every single practice that I gave over 12 days, and there was one per day, so there are 12 of them in there, is intended to help you feel amazing and to create and protect space for yourself in your everyday, crazy, busy, full, rich life. Never is that more important in times of higher expectation and stress. And that is kind of a good way to sum up some people's Christmas holidays. In fact, that self-love Nurture Fest has been nurturing for me and for other mamas to the point where I've decided that I'm going to open up my Self-Love-a-thon, which is a 40-day program that I offered at the beginning of this year and want to close this year by offering it as well. I will put the link to that in the show notes too, and you would be so welcome to join us for that. It's lifetime access to the Self-Love-a-thon, which will be updated twice a year, so we'll run it 3 times every year, every time with new material, and you will have lifetime access. The regular price is $279, but between now and December 31st, you can access that for a lifetime for $199. Give yourself the gift of self-love this Christmas with the Self-Love-a-thon, and you will never regret it. Without any further ado, here is Dr. Stephania Sciamano, sage, guide, friend, amazing woman. Can't wait to hear your thoughts. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of MamaFuel, the podcast. My name is Ann Ferguson. I am your host. And as ever, I am extremely happy to be in your earbuds today because we are about to go on a journey led by a woman whose wisdom, whose knowing, whose insight into how the human psyche and the human body work together and sometimes at odds with each other, has made a massive impact in my life and in the lives of many, many other women besides. Her name is Dr. Stephania Sciamano, and I hope I pronounced that right. Yes, I'm getting the thumbs up. That's good. Suddenly you get a little bit nervous, and I am so thrilled to welcome you, Stephania, onto MamaFuel, the podcast, because we have every time we talk, we could just talk for hours, and I'm sure today will be no exception. But we're gonna condense it into about 45 minutes and just glean as much goodness from our conversation as we can. So welcome and thank you for making the time to come and participate today in this conversation.
Oh, Anne, I'm so thrilled to be here. Thank you so much.
It is my pleasure. So let's start at the MamaFuel beginning, which is the question I ask all of my guests. And that is, tell me what your life looks like right now.
Right now, it looks like blankets and stuffies all over the floor, and Legos and Pokemon stuff.
Excellent. And this is because you have a great affinity for all of these items yourself?
Oh, yes. Rather large affinity for little boy toys. So I have a 6-year-old son. I'm a single mom. We live up in Rhode Island, in coastal Rhode Island, right where it meets Connecticut. So a pretty cold place to be, but it's a good life. It's not what I thought I would ever be doing ever. Oh. And here I am with my little guy who's actually in school in first grade. And then I work. So I have an online business, and this is my office that you're seeing. So he goes to school, and here I am helping other people. So it's a very interesting little life that we have here.
It is interesting and beautiful and amazing to watch you evolve, certainly in the time that we have been in contact through this wonderful, weird vortex of online business and online communication and supporting of people around the world. You said something earlier that I would like to come back to, which is that your beautiful life that you have right now is nothing like what you thought it was going to look like. What did you think it was going to look like?
Well, I grew up in South Florida, and then I trained in Arizona, and then I lived in Hawaii for a while. I always thought I would live somewhere tropical because it's like kind of in my blood. I mean, people love the beach, but to me, it's like spiritual to be in the ocean. Mm. So I do live by the water, but I can't really get in it unless you want to do like the polar bear thing. Which
those ice baths that people are doing right now.
That I'm all for other people doing that. So yeah, I thought that I would be like traveling all the time and was kind of jet setting, living in a tropical world. I never really, really planned on having a child. So he was like a wonderful gift of evolution for me. And to also not be with his father. So I never saw myself as like a single mom in New England. What am I doing here?
Who am I? Whose life is this?
Yeah, kind of.
And yet, there you are with your beautiful boy who loves dinosaurs and Lego and all the fun, crazy boy stuff. And the two of you are this beautiful unit of togetherness, learning and leading each other along this path of motherhood. And
we are. We
humanity.
traveled together. I took him to Hawaii by myself last summer. So I want him to learn to travel because I think that he grows up a little bit each time. Mm. Something changes in him. It might not be that this trip itself is stress-free, but when we land back at home, he is changed for the better every time.
What do you think makes that happen?
I think he has to learn how to adapt. I think he has to learn things like you can't like throw temper tantrums on a plane. He has to like learn you really cannot do that. And it's not just mommy saying, no, you cannot do that. It's like he's starting to get like that social grace, like, oh, people are going to look at me weird or, but we don't want to care what other people think. But I think sometimes it's good for children to see like, no, you sit still and put your seatbelt on a plane. And then he grew up a little bit. So
do you think the same thing happens to you?
Yes. It was, that was a very humbling trip. I'm not the same woman I was 10 years ago when I was there and single and in my residency.
For sure not.
No.
For sure not.
Yeah. It's like you revisit a place and you think you're going to kind of revisit those feelings and those locations and like the island has also changed. I've changed. Now I've got a kid in tow. So it was a radically evolving trip for both of us. And I'm really grateful that we did it.
I feel like that those two words together, radically evolving, are a really apt description of your path professionally, in life in general, and into motherhood. Is that a fair read, do you think?
Yeah, I don't do things half-assed, and I don't do things really subtly usually. It's usually like a big kaboom.
So talk to us about some of the big kabooms that have led you to where you are in your life right now.
One of them was when I was in college and I was in pre-med, and I kind of thought like, well, I could be a surgeon. I was working at a dermatologist, like, I could do that. I could do that job. And then I discovered natural medicine. Mm-hmm. And my life changed really big because I drove with friends all the way out to Arizona to go to school. And while I was there, I discovered another level of spirituality that I had not been exposed to. So living in South Florida, which is like a big melting pot, it was just like crazy sunshine, alcohol, half nakedness kind of most of the year. And I really enjoyed that part of life.
Doesn't sound like there's much wrong with some of that. Yeah.
It was a very good time. And then I got out to school and realized not only did I need to buckle down in a different way and not live the endless summer, but I discovered like Native American spirituality and being close to the land, like the Red Rocks of Sedona. And my entire world changed. Like I started training in Reiki, but then I went like into, sweat lodges and vision quests. And I started learning like really humbling spirituality, like, and crying, just really shedding old layers of myself and sort of the superficial world that I had lived in. And I didn't realize it until I wasn't in it. And some of it looked a little like a crisis. It was interesting. Like my body released it all through a rash all over my body. And so it really brought me into like, this isn't just physical, this body. This body is spiritual and emotional. And if you're not going to sit still for a minute and listen, we're going to make you.
Mm-hmm. Ain't that the truth? Hands up, everybody who maybe has had that experience before. My hand is certainly up. All my hands and feet are up.
Yeah.
For sure. My hair is standing up. All the things are standing up. Yes, right. Totally. And what a ride, right? From that sort of, I don't want to say numb, but that or mindless. It wasn't mindless. If you're in pre-med, you're clearly intelligent, you're clearly focused, you're clearly able to, as you say, buckle down. And
here's the thing, for some of us that are like always good at school, you can just go along and along and along and along.
Yeah.
And like you are doing it like, well, I'm good at studying, so no big deal. Like bring your books to the beach and have a few beers while you study. That was my life. Mm. But then you get to a point where you're like, okay, I have 12 classes. I can't do that.
Yeah.
I'm having a spiritual awakening. I can't do that.
And I don't want to.
And you don't want to. And you realize like that life isn't me. That's not me. And it all starts to shed at once. And it can be a little bit intense.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's probably a big part of the reason why people aren't willing to get into that kind of introspection and work. I say that the word feels heavy because I think it carries that for some people, that dread of, you mean I'm going to have to go into that stuff? I just want to feel better. I want to know what my life's purpose is. I want to give. I want to feel happy. I want to feel more aligned with myself. And that all sounds great, farting unicorns and glitter storms. However, the reality is, as I've experienced, as I've seen you experience in little ways in the last year, as everybody who starts to journey down this path of turning inward and being really honest about what we see and feel, it's not a bed of roses. It's not a walk in the park, but it's like going for a run, right? Nobody really wants to go for a run unless you're really a huge, keen runner. But everybody loves having run, right? Like we're all super happy when we finished running and we've got the endorphins going. It's just maybe not the actual thing itself that feels so hot.
I think it really depends on how much you're resisting. We all get that call so early. I think we get the call even as children. We get the call again in adolescence, again in our teens. It's over and over and over. Do you want to live this better, more divine, more connected life or not? And I think I did a whole lot of like, nope, I'm good.
This ride's going well. I'm good.
I'm having a good old time. No, thank you. Until it became like, this is your calling, Stephania, and you're going to do this. And I was like, no, I am choosing. Yes. But still resisted on the inside. It sounded like cognitively fabulous. And I think there was even a part of my ego that was like, yeah, I want to be spiritually awakened. How cool is that?
Yeah.
But until I realized like I was actually fighting it. There was like, I had my dukes up at the same time. And it doesn't always have to be so full of resistance. It can be a different level of surrender where the pain isn't so exquisite.
That sounds very appealing. Like the more direct line without all of the drama and the struggle and the difficulty, and getting to the place where you are living in greater alignment and a greater truth, whatever that means, which is different to everybody. And it sounds very unsubstantial. Like it's not substantial. It's unmeasurable, Stephania. However, it's the stuff that, as you say, we get these calls from a very young age. And we just had a conversation, my little one and I last week, where she ended up sobbing in my arms and saying, it's too much, Mommy. It's too much, too many things after school, too much. I just want to go to school, which she finds really hard. She's brilliant academically, but she's bored and she struggles in class. And so it's really hard for her to contain herself. And it's hard for her to follow all the rules. And it's hard for her to try so hard to be perfect all the time.
Oh, sweet baby.
And she was just saying to me, Mommy, I'm just so tired. I just don't want to do this. And for me, it's interesting that we're having this conversation now because we've been talking about having it for months. But for me, it now is really a time as well of like, I don't know. Is this what we want to be doing? Is this how we want to be living this part of our lives? Do we want to find an old, beautiful, huge barn-like building and create the incredible space to hold retreats and teach yoga and come back to all of those incredible things that I love doing? Or do we want to keep staying in Geneva and being in the private schools and doing the things we need to do so that can happen? And, like it's that constant invitation, I guess, because people might not connect or relate to the idea of having a call, but it's a constant invitation to be aware of your curiosity and the things that grab your attention of like, is this the path I want to be on? Is there another way?
And I think a really good question for anyone to ask themselves is, what are you being called by? Like, are you being called by your soul or by your ego? Because the ego might say, well, I think the way it feels in the body is very different. The call of the soul to me is always like a whisper. Mm-hmm. Like it would pull, like, like your whole energy field together, where the call of your ego is usually like right in the gut, like a hard tug, like I have to do this. Versus like the soul goes, my darling, this is the way.
That feels so good, even just hearing that.
Yeah. So like, what struck me that you said is, the private schools so that you can. And maybe that's true. And I really don't know enough about it to like have an opinion. But sometimes we do these things where we're like, I'm doing this thing that really sucks and it's making me suffer so that I can have this reward later. But is the reward guaranteed?
Yeah.
And it's always that question of like, well, what do I want my life to actually be like now? And is this the call of my soul or something I think I should do? And that answer really comes from within. And it's a constant rechecking of, what am I answering? Am I answering my higher self or answering cultural norms? Am I answering like what I think God or the divine would have me do to serve humanity? Or am I answering like the wounds of my ancestors? Like what's actually happening here? Who am I answering?
Such a good question.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me more about this idea of are you answering the wounds of your ancestors? How does that manifest? So just before you answer that, the bit that we have skipped over is that you were in pre-med, you studied, you became a naturopathic doctor, you became a shaman, you continue to study, you continue to evolve your knowing. So you've worked with a clinical practice as a naturopathic doctor for years and years and years. And all of that knowledge comes with you, along with the pre-med studies, along with everything else, along with the shamanism and all of the other studies that you have done in a less allopathic medicine field. So you bring all of this together. So when you're talking about the calling of the soul and you're talking about how it manifests in the body, for everyone who's listening and doesn't know you, this woman knows whereof she speaks, not in her brain, but through passing on of tradition and knowledge and really serious, full-on, reimbursed by your health insurance company medicine. So coming back to what you were saying about, are you answering the wounds of your ancestors? What does that mean for people who are hearing that for the first time?
The quickest way to explain it in a nutshell is the wounds of our ancestors usually tell us to be afraid. They tell us to be afraid we're going to lose everything. They tell us to be afraid that we're going to be left alone, that we have to work very, very hard or we're going to fail, that maybe God doesn't have our back, to not trust anything or anyone. It can be all kinds of things. And we as women, we have a very interesting position as women in this time in our world, because we as women can own whatever, at least in our Western cultures. I can own a house, I can have a bank account, I can vote, I can become a doctor. 2 generations ago, no, that was not going to happen. But the women that came before us led us to think that we have to be tightened down. They didn't want us to have to depend on men. So they almost kind of trained us to be like men, to go out there and achieve in ways that can harm your femininity, that can put you in a mode of go, 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 go. And we forget how to be women. And I don't mean stay-at-home mom and nursing babies. That part is instinct. You don't have to learn how to do that. I mean the part of us that doesn't allow us to receive what we could, whether that's help, love, adoration, being cherished, loving ourselves, adoring our bodies, cellulite and all, letting big amounts of money come to us just because your gifts are that awesome. Any of these things that we really, really want in our lives could be infinitely easier if we didn't have that whisper, that neuro pathway, that imprinting of the women who came before us that were trying to protect us so we didn't have to live like they did.
Be smaller, be safer, and function in a man's world. That saying that just has come up as you're speaking of, it's a man's world, learn how to function in it.
Yeah. And their choices were be small, safe, and pregnant and barefoot, or go out and be a guy.
Yeah.
And we don't have to do that. We don't have to have it either or. We can have, sometimes you're pregnant, sometimes you're working, sometimes you're nursing, sometimes you're having a glass of wine. We can have both. We have so much more available to us, but it's that ancestor wound that goes, nah, you got to be careful.
Yeah. Don't rely on that. Don't rely on him. Don't rely on the thing. Don't rely on the job. Don't rely on that. You're going to get hurt.
But what if underneath all of that, and this is my theory that I think works really well, is underneath it all is don't rely on yourself and God to make these things happen. To not just make it happen, because that's even a masculine way of speaking, but to receive from yourself and God. I hope that's making sense.
Talk to me more about that. What do you mean?
Because when we're not trusting others, we're really not trusting ourselves to have discernment. And the discernment comes from the connection to the divine, because that's where all the answers come from. That's where your intuition comes from. So we're taught, don't trust others, but that puts all the power outside of you. And really the power is inside to make a decision. And like, we ignore our own red flags.
All the time. Oh my goodness.
So it's not that you can't trust other people. It's that you got to get to trust you. And the way you do that is by trusting the divine, that the answers are there. And like being in that space where you can hear those whispers of your soul, those calls of your soul, not the ego and the fear and the pain.
And knowing, one of the things that you said to me early on was that there something that you see in a lot of women, because you focus on working with women, and you focus specifically, it's evolved over time. We were saying about that evolution. Sure. You've evolved to work with women who have succeeded, in air quotes, in this air quotes man's world, and have pushed and pushed and pushed, and achieved a certain degree of financial success, maybe achieved a certain degree of status, and their bodies and their souls and their hearts are screaming out that this isn't sustainable. And in order to go bigger, grow more, have more money, more renowned, success, peace, you got to push harder. You got to push harder. You got to push harder. And one of the things that you had said to me early on was that all of these women have in common this sense of being separate from the divine. And you said it to me, and I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. I don't even like, okay, that, yeah, interesting. And, and my ego was like, what else you got?
Totally.
And over time, it wasn't conscious at the time when we were having the conversation. I was like, oh my God, yeah. But actually, very quickly, it was that like, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And so can you talk a little bit more about that separation? I'd like to talk about that separation from the divine and how you mentioned that it can harm our femininity, because the masculine is the giving, doing, going, pushing, and the feminine is the receiving, gentle, like there are different aspects to the feminine and the masculine, right? But can you talk a little bit about that? One, the separation from the divine, and then two, what happens when we get our masculinity and our femininity out of divine balance, if I can say it that way.
Have you ever had a moment where you felt so in the moment, so in your body, so like completely present that your mind was blown and you wondered, why am I not always this way?
Yes, totally. Happened this summer. Massive, huge. So
that is in divine flow. You're not worried. You're not even like hungry. You're not hot or cold. It's just like, a moment when you're like watching the moon over the ocean and you're just like, wow. And you feel it in your body and your body feels uplifted. And it's like, you're not worried about money in that moment. You're not worried about like your next client. You're not worried about anything. Life can be way more like that. That is what divine connection feels like. But interestingly enough, like the human condition is that we forget about that connection. We wonder like, where is God? God never left. We wonder like, where is the money? The money is energy and it comes through your clients from God to you. It never left. It's always in your energy field. But what we're taught, that's the wounds of the ancestors, is to be like, no, I got it. No, I know I have to work hard. No, I don't think I trust that person. I don't want to work with them. Just like there's a whole lot of no, there's a whole lot of hand up. And I think that the spiritual path in evolution is realizing our willingness to be separate and healing that at its core. Because we're doing it willingly. We just didn't know it. We were just brought up that way. I mean, I was even brought up in the Catholic Church and I still didn't get it because, said with love to Catholics, and I feel like I can speak from very direct experience here. I remember thinking like, some of the prayers are even, I am not worthy to receive you. Say the word and I shall be healed. Well, you're going to say that every Sunday. When's the word coming?
Yeah. Where is it?
When my grandma was 80, beating her chest, little old Italian lady, like she's doing this. Like really? Like, when does God ever give you the word and then you shall be healed? Like, that didn't make sense to me even as a child.
Yeah.
I am not worthy is the prayer. And I thought, I don't get it. I thought God was supposed to be loving. How can it be both? So it's through our programming that we're like, I'm not worthy of God. I'm not worthy of love. I'm not worthy of riches. I'm not worthy of anything. So we spend our entire, effing lives trying to prove our worth to God. Well, how do you ever know that you are worthy? What's the prize? You get rich, you get the right husband, like, and then you're good or not? I don't know. Like, there's no measuring stick here. So what if that's all an illusion? What if every bit of unworthiness of God is an absolute illusion, and that unworthiness makes you feel separate? And you spent your whole life trying to heal it when it was never really true. It sticks you in a weird rat race. So we as women, and then the healing of the femininity is, we are not only taught that we're not worthy, we're taught that to be feminine is to be weak, submissive, docile, not own anything, giving to everybody else, and no one gives you, no, that's okay, I'll cook dinner for everyone and I won't get any food in the end. Like, really? Martyrdom.
Yeah.
Especially Catholicism. There's a lot of martyrdom about.
There is. Yes. Having also grown up in the Catholic Church, there is a substantial amount of martyring happening. Yeah.
There's also a lot of beauty. There's
totally
there too.
And community and love and presence and ritual, all of which has richness and a place as well. It has value too.
It does.
Which I think ties into what we were saying, or what we were starting to talk about earlier, which is that beautiful dance between the masculine and the feminine, right? Like, if you look at the Catholic Church, which wasn't the point of our discussion to begin with, but as where they are now, there is benefit and drawback. There is positive and negative. And in the balancing of the feminine, the healthy feminine, the empowered feminine, and the empowered masculine, that's when things start to flow. That's when, in my experience, very recent experience, is when I stand up and say, these are my boundaries, this is what I'm willing to do, this is when I'm available to do this work, this is, these are the conditions under which I'm prepared to operate, instead of the response being that which my programming taught me to fear, which was, oh, well, then we don't want you, or you're not committed, or you don't want this job. The response is, okay, you're only available to do things in this structure. Great, let's take that.
Yeah.
And the programmed part of me is going, oh my God, really? But the healthy, empowered part of me is going, yeah, damn right. This is what I'm available for. I'm not available for the things that are not empowering to my feminine and my masculine, not my ego.
Those are standards, right? If you think about it, this is just your feminine standards that say, this is cool, that is not. This is what I'm available for, this is what I'm not. And we don't realize that in femininity, that's good. We've pictured it as so passive. But what if you are meant to be this golden chalice? Like, to receive from the masculine, to receive from the divine. And in your maintaining of your container that is your body, that is your energy field, that is your feminine purpose and power, the receiving goes way up. It's like, oh my God.
Totally. I have chills, so many chills. And then from that place of, as you say, that golden chalice, from that place of receiving and of filling up, that's when you fill up to that the word is escaping me, to that image of the overflowing cup, right? Like, my cup is so full of receiving that it's overflowing and I can share it onto others.
Yes.
But until you love your own chalice, your own physical being in an active way, then how can you trust that it can receive? And how can you trust that you can receive? And that you will then know what to do with that which you receive, that you won't block it, chuck it out of the chalice, just shove it down somewhere in case you don't get any more.
We do hoard, don't we?
We do. I mean, I'm finishing work for my copywriting clients on Friday, and I have 2 weeks off, and it's Christmas. I want to relax. But what I'm most giddy about, other than sleep and time with my family, is getting rid of stuff.
Yeah.
To just open up the space and be like, okay, not that I want to fill it up with new stuff, but just to have that spaciousness to evolve and to move and to start flowing and allowing that less pushing and masculine side to come through and to dance with the masculine side. Let's talk about that for a second, because these are all kind of quite vague concepts, especially if you're hearing them for the first time. You and I are not hearing them for the first time, but if this is your first time,
abstract,
these kinds of ideas, they're like, what? How does one balance, if that's even possible, or begin to engage in an empowering dance between the masculine and the feminine within ourselves? And as a second question, let's talk about the emasculation piece afterwards. I just want to.
No, that's part of my answer. So
okay, good. Yeah. Okay, so how do you find that exquisite dance between the masculine and the feminine? Because we all have masculine and feminine in all of us. It doesn't matter whether we were born male identifying or female identifying.
Absolutely.
We all have it, no matter what gender we identify with or genders we identify with.
So some of it, we can actually use money as one of the tools to explain the answer.
Okay.
And there's usually, I have people begin with, what is your feminine doing? Is she over-functioning or under-functioning? And that's the question you're going to ask yourself. And here's how you answer. If you are feeling like you can't get any creative flow going, you don't have any ideas, you don't know what your purpose is, you're not sure what to do, you don't know what action to do, it's all like, I just don't know, I just want to rest, I want the world to leave me alone, you're in an under-functioning feminine. If you're the other way, which is the over-functioning, that's usually like the get out of my way, I'll do it myself, I've got so much to do and not enough time. You know what I'm saying? That's the over-functioning. At all. Yeah, no. Probably 90% of my clients are the over-functioning kind. Like, and these are women that are high-powered. You know, the money comes in fine most of the time, but they hit walls. They hit energetic walls. They hit income ceilings. And the counterpart to the over-functioning feminine, and by the way, over-functioning feminine is also emasculating, because she's telling the masculine, go away. That's why she hits walls. That's why she hits income walls, energy walls, self-esteem walls, because she's shut off that other part of herself. So if you're an always go, always do, I've got it myself, you're an emasculating feminine. The counterpart to that is the shrinking masculine. So you can kind of imagine a man who you've like ripped him a new one. Is he going to stick around? No. You can imagine he goes out to the garage to do some stuff, or he like is asleep on the couch, or he wants to just watch football or something like that, where he's disengaged from you. These are the women that usually say, money used to come in great and now it's not. Or everything was going great with my business and now I've lost my love for it. Or the man in her life, she can't get him to engage emotionally. Something like that. So when that's you, here's what you do about it. You have a conversation within. You can do it in meditation. You can speak it out loud. You can write it in your journal, whatever works for you. It begins with an apology. This is usually tough for the women who have that strong, like, I don't really need a man, I'm good. Or some women in this stage are like, men are kind of worthless. I don't really understand, like, they are the way they are. Like, it would be easier without him, that kind of thing. Which is, again, 90% of the women I work with. The apology goes something like this. It's her speaking to him. My darling, I am so sorry. I did not realize how I was pushing you away. here I am wanting you to deliver and telling you to take a hike at the same time. I didn't even know I was doing it. I'm so sorry. I want to repair this. And then you imagine yourself also as that masculine who's like waking up from a nap, on the couch, like, oh, I was wondering if you were ever going to say that. Like, wow, I would love to give to you. I adore you. Like, I live to be a part of your life and serve you. And you keep telling me to F off. Like, I didn't know what to do, so I just went to sleep. And then what does she say to that? You were going to give to me? You were actually going to deliver what I wanted? I didn't even know. Here's what I appreciate about you. Here's what I notice that you already are doing for me. Here's what I notice you already do bring to me. And then you can make a list that can be anything from money for your rent, the car is working great, anything that's already going well in your life, you want to start kind of listing it out. When women do this, they usually cry because you realize I have been telling my divine masculine, the masculine energy of the universe that I know I want, to get out of here. And that's true no matter which gender you're attracted to. It's still the same idea. Because, you think about it, if something's going wrong with the house, do you want to fix it yourself or do you want help?
Totally want help.
If you use a lot of snow to shovel, do you want to do it yourself or do you want help? Same idea. It's like money is masculine energy, and we want to let it come to us by repairing that inner relationship. And even now it sounds abstract. So, for women, it's finding out her exact pattern. How are you pushing the masculine away? How are you telling that part of you, I don't need you because I'm the man, I'm the one with the balls here. That's what women are doing. And then we go, where's the goods? Why are you not delivering? You pain in my butt. Is that making sense or is that still too abstract?
It's making sense. I have a million questions that probably some of our listeners have as well, because on the one hand, I think, well, if the divine feminine is a bit of a ball busting, pushing go-getter, she's getting, there's a degree to which that has functioned. And if at the same time there's that emasculation piece, which I'm still struggling to get my brain around, because what happens is I start flipping to the outside. I start flipping to relationships I've had in the past, relationships with male bosses versus female bosses, relationships with my husband, relationship with exes. Really, it kind of gives a different lens through which to see interactions and how relationship inwardly dictates relationship outwardly and not vice versa. And the
problem here is that we almost always want to make men, like human men, the divine masculine, and they are not the same. It can look the same. It can reflect your inner world, but like your dad is not the divine masculine. Like the way your father provided for you in your home is not God. The way your husband acts, the way your ex-boyfriend acted, what you're saying, the way you jumped out and went to all your examples, that's what all women do. And I did it too. And then you have to be kind of reeled in with like, okay, that's how your inner broadcast created that because you were a vibrational match to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. But that is not the same as that guy is divine masculine. He is a wounded masculine.
Totally. And that's, I hear you 100%. And that's what I was saying, that I'm realizing through this lens how the way that my inner feminine and inner masculine were interacting created the container to accept different situations and to bring in different situations. And you use language like you said, a vibrational match for certain situations. So if someone who is listening who is struggling on some level, be it financial because life is just really expensive, or something has happened, or it's all just too hard. A lot of the moms that I've been working with recently have been talking about just just feeling that really dragged down and really struggling. Like everything is hard, and also running everything through their own systems. And I recognize this because I do it too. And I'm healing from that. But I see a lot of moms, a lot of women in general, but mothers even more so, running what goes on with their children through their own systems. So your child's being bullied at school, you run it through your system. You've got your kid has a problem with a teacher, it runs through your system and brings up all of your own stuff. Someone has an issue, like the neighbors are having issues, you kind of run it through your system because they're your neighbors and they're close by. Your parent is sick and you run that through your system because you're helpless and you want to be able to help them. And we run it through the system as though we were this inexhaustible source of fixing of all of the other things and all of the other people, like healing all of their experiences and smoothing out their paths. And when I say it that way, I recognize that that's madness. And if I were to say it objectively to one of the mamas that I'm working with, they might also see that it's madness. But when it's happening to your child, or is something happening to your partner, or it's something happening to your beloved of some description, parent or somebody else, we do that, don't we? We run it through the system when we deplete. And that is that one of the things that sets that divine dance of masculine and feminine a bit off. Like it just shifts you're just off beat a little bit, aren't you? If you're running other people's stuff through your system.
I think one of the best solutions there is to keep coming from curiosity. Like, what's going on with that person? What is it in you that is being triggered by the story? Because it's not you. We think it's us. We think we're the ones being bullied at school. We remember being bullied at school.
Totally.
Right. But it's like your child has become that vibrational match to that somehow through what they're exposed to, through what you've downloaded, through their own choices. And it's that loving detachment, which is incredibly hard for mothers. Oh my God, is that hard for mothers? I actually had this last night. I sat with my son on the couch because he had been naughty 2 days ago when there was a substitute teacher. And then the following day when the teacher got back, he refused to work and he was sitting there cutting up newspaper in the corner. And he didn't want to talk about it. And I remember being the kid that acted up when there was a sub because I don't know, I was a little shit, I guess. And I just had to hold him and ask the questions. I don't know what's going on for him. It isn't me. We want to fix so bad because we get our worth from fixing. And it also decreases our own cortisol when we can soothe the energy of the people around us. So it's both. We want to have more worth and we want to be comfortable. And we kind of have to get out of that and realize like, we can't fix it for this other person. That's their spiritual journey. That's their soul's choices or their ego's choices. And instead, it's just holding that space. This is where the feminine comes in. The feminine is the container. The feminine is space. The masculine is time. The feminine is space. We create space. We hold the container for that person to have their meltdown, have their experience without rushing in to fix it.
Yes.
Not easy.
Not easy, and yet so empowering, because trying to control the outer is futile. Even when it is the outer that is an experience where our children are struggling, even if it is an outer where we just know that if they did this thing differently, it would be easier. If that friend just dumped that guy, or if the person just left their job, or if they just get out of their own way and promote their damn business already, they'd be amazing because they're so great, and all the things, and it triggers things in us. And this is something we often talk about on this podcast, is this trigger of something's going on outside and I make it mean something relative to my experience. And being able to sit in discomfort feels like a radical evolution. We were talking about radical evolution before. Being able to sit with someone else in their discomfort and sit in your own damn stuff and be uncomfortable without trying to eat cookies until it goes away, or have another glass of wine, or hook up with somebody, or whatever the things are that maybe we did in our youth, or maybe we still do. I don't know. Everybody has their own life path. Just sitting with our own stuff is, to me, supremely radically evolving. And then allowing the space for that dance to start to happen, so that you can learn to trust yourself again. Because we teach our kids, as we were taught, not to trust themselves about whether they need to wear a sweater, whether they want to eat more lunch, whether they want to have a nap, whether it's time to go to bed, whether, because we should. And it's the right thing is for your children to go to bed early, and they should be taking music lessons and like competitive extracurricular activities that we seem to have. Like, what's your child doing? Well, my child's doing these 17 things before 7 p.m. at night after school. And what's your child doing? Oh, well, my child's only doing 12 things.
Mine's picking his nose.
Right. Mine's picking his nose and eating the boogers. That's pretty much what he does after school.
Yeah.
And we get into this outward facing. And what I'm hearing as the main takeaway from our conversation is, go within, young grasshopper. Like, go within. Go within
and create space. Always creating the space, just like you want to do in your house.
Yes.
Same thing. We're creating space to let the divine in. And when we're super full of like programming and extracurricular activities and like trying to fix everything, like we have to relinquish our role as master fixer of the universe. It's not your role. That's your ego that says it's your role. It's not your effing role.
Mm-hmm.
There is no sacred text that says, go forth and solve everyone's problems.
Thank goodness.
No, it says, be still and know that like the divine is with you. The answers come. And even in the caretaker roles of like doctor or shaman or coach or whatever we do, we still can't solve everyone's problems. We want to, but even then it's doing them a disservice. It's like saying that that person doesn't have their own connection to the divine through which they can get answers. We are there to hold the container and ask the good questions and point the way, but we still don't solve their problems. They solve their own.
And the same goes for our children and everyone else that we love. Yes. Oh, I feel the relief of that. I mean, we've talked about this before, but anytime we talk about this, I just go, oh my God, yes, because the role of master fixer of the universe for all the people and all the things is impossible. And it goes along with the single-handed master upholder of the fantasy life that we think we could or should or would have been living at this time. And as we go into the holiday season, I'm going to be airing this on Christmas Eve. So we're recording this just almost a week before Christmas. This is such a perfect time to give yourself permission to drop those fantasies, to drop the weight and the tightness of the fantasies of how Christmas should be and how kids should behave and how we should all get along and how families should be better and things should be different. And I shouldn't hate my family so much, or I shouldn't, I don't know, feel so close to my sister, or I shouldn't be attracted to my friend's husband, or whatever. I don't know. I'm just pulling things out of the air, but whatever the stuff is that's going on, it just is. And releasing and relinquishing that upholder of fantasy role and releasing and relinquishing that master fixer role. I feel like I could levitate off my chair just even talking about it. It's like, oh yeah. And then when you talk about creating space inside, what immediately rushed in as you were saying that was, okay, and then what happens? Then what do I do? And my ego's like, what's the step? What's the next thing? And what immediately
like me to tell you
behind that was trust. But yeah, tell me, and then we'll come to the wrap up to our conversation.
Become in full approval of yourself. Become in full approval of you. And that is how you reconnect with your feminine incredibly strongly. That is the radical evolution of your feminine.
That makes my head explode. And I can hear exploding heads of every person listening, because we are so self-critical. And on some level, at one point, we learned that being self-critical is what made us improve and what made us better and what made us progress. And it is such crap. It's not true. Maybe it worked as a strategy when we were kids, but it doesn't work. And it's not good for our kids either. So whoever figured that that was a good strategy was a poo-poo head. Yeah. So yes. Trust. What came for me when my ego was all like, tell me what the next step is. What immediately came for me was like, just trust. You'll know. And now we know because you've just told us. Radical acceptance of yourself. And if you're not watching this on video, my daughter does this thing where she puts her hands, like she makes little fists beside her temples. She goes, and explodes her hands out sideways and goes, my head just exploded. Yeah. Radically accepting yourself. That is the core of all self-love. And from then you begin, right?
Yep. That's how you make the space.
Yeah. Oh, Stephania.
I could talk for hours.
Ditto. We could talk for hours. However, I am going to say thank you so much. I would love for anyone who is interested in hearing more from you, which I have my not so secret plans to get a lot of people to hear more from you, and we can talk about that another time. I have grand plans. My PR brain is still in full force as far as this is all concerned. But for people who would like to find you and read more of your beautiful writings and receive your food for thought, which is so growth provoking in a good way, where can we find you?
You can find me in two places. I have a Facebook group called Energy Rich Women. Mm-hmm. And I have a website, which is my name, stephaniasciamano.com.
I will put that in the show notes so anyone can go and find you, because spelling can sometimes be a funny little bugger. So yeah. Anyone can go to the show notes and find the link to Stephania's webpage. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this conversation. Thank you for your lighting the path for those of us who are still muddling on a different part of the path. We're all muddling, I think, at some stage. All of us. Too. Oh yeah, we totally muddle. Yeah. We're just at different stages of walking, and as the saying goes, we're all just walking each other home. So thank you for your grace and your beauty and your generosity in helping us to walk this part of the path.
My pleasure.
So much love to you.
Aloha.
Thank you. How was that for you? I loved listening to Stephania talk about our divine masculine and divine feminine and how important the elegant dance between those two aspects of our beings is to keeping us grounded, centered, happy, abundant, wealthy, satisfied. Feels so good, and is something that I'm going to be focusing on for these 2 weeks of Christmas break. I would love for you to explore how you can invite self-love into your life. And if you haven't already checked it out, go to thecenteredmamaproject.com/Facebook. Come into the virtual village, which is a free group, and find the self-love challenge. It's hashtag SLC. You'll find Self-Love Challenge live video that I posted for 12 days ending on the 23rd of December. Whether you're listening to this on the 24th of December or you're listening to this in 6 months, that will still be there. So you can hashtag SLC in the group and find all of that information and all of those videos that are live so that you can work self-love and into your regular life and start to invite that dance between the masculine and the feminine. That self-love challenge, Nurture Fest, was so nurturing to me and to other mamas that I've decided to actually open up the Self-Love-a-thon, which is a program that I created for mamas like you and me, because I know I need it and everyone else has also given me raving reviews about it. And it's 40 days of self-love practices, similar to the ones that you get in the Self-Love Challenge in the group. And Along with that is an amazing community in a Facebook group where we all support each other in learning and practicing self-love on a daily basis. I will be running that 3 times in 2019, the first one kicking off on the 14th of January, and I would love to have you join the Centered Mamas Self-Love-a-thon. So if that's something that you're interested in, check it out. Current price is $199, and on the 31st of December at midnight, like a pumpkin, the price will go back up to the regular price of $279, and I would love you to get in at the $199 deal, saving you $80, which is a lot. And I would very joyfully share that with you. So check the show notes for the link, and you can go and sign up for the Self-Love-a-thon. And also bear in mind that it's a phenomenal gift for any mama on your wish list who could use a break and is unlikely to be able to run away and join the circus to get that break. Wish you an amazing holiday season. And if you're listening to this after Christmas, I wish you a wonderful, wonderful day wherever and whenever you are. So much love. Talk soon.
That's it for today's episode of MamaFuel, the podcast. Thanks for listening. There's a lot more conversation, sharing, and real mama talk happening in our private Facebook group. To join us, go to www.thecenteredmamaproject.com/Facebook and make sure you say hi when you get there. If you like this episode, or if you know a mama who could use a little mama fuel, I'd love you to share this episode and to rate and leave a review. Every comment helps, and it is always a delight to hear from you. Thanks, and bye for now.